And good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Kim Davis. Today is Tuesday, June the 11th. And I can't believe it's already June, but man, it's so much happening. I had to go and try to bring in the A team, and she was fortunately available to join us today. I'm super excited to have tennis legend and, one of my best friends. You guys know that, Zina Garrison, joining us to talk about a lot of stuff that's happening. First of all, welcome to the show, Zina. I think you're muted, Z. You're muted, Zina. You're muted.
I always look forward. Thank you. Sorry about that. I always look forward to being on the show. So thanks for having me.
So the reason you and I talk all the time, but one of the reasons I wanted to have you join me is because there's been so much happening in the world of sports. We want to talk a little bit about tennis, the French Open that just took place, the fact that Coco Gauff is now number 2 in the world. Of course, she lost to the number 1 player in the world in a tough match, but I want to just kind of get an update on what's happening in the tennis world. And one of the things that you and I have been talking about a lot is just the rise of the interest in women's sports, especially women's basketball, because that's the team event. And we talked about that even before all of the, I'll use the word controversy and conversation around Caitlin Clark, just about the rise in general of women's basketball and women's sports and how it's finally time to see this pendulum swing back. And I say swing back because we also start in the early days of the WNBA with the Houston Comets.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, we're always talking about it, but it's just so interesting to me. It's like people are so interested now about the WNBA. And, as you mentioned before, we grew up with the Comets. I mean, we were used to winning, 4 titles in a row. We were used to strong players, great defense, great offense, and we saw the epitome of how it could be. So for me now, all these people are all of a sudden talking about, it's just so, they play so rough and so tough or whatever. I'm like, so obviously you never watched before. And it's just, it's just like coming up with all the antics. And of course the Caitlin, situation where people were saying, and I read something the other day about, it's the same, very similar to Larry Bird when he was in the WNBA and how people, and yes, the great white hope, whatever. But it's the fact is you still have other players. That one player does not make the league for anyone.
Well, I was listening to a colleague and a friend of both of us, ours, and that's Mike Wilbon, who has talked about it. And he said, listen, we are not framing the conversation right, because this is really about race and culture. I said last week, it's where sports and society meet. And people don't want to talk about race and culture, but this is really what we're talking about here. If you look at the Olympics, because that's the thing now, she was left off the Olympic team. She's not one of the best 12 players in the WNBA. She's not even one of the best, probably 25 players in the league. I mean, Enrique Ogunbowale, who is the leading scorer, she's one who may have an argument, right? She's the best player in the WNBA. There's no player on this squad, the U.S. team, under the age of 26. Caitlin is 22. She went from college to the WNBA. She has never practiced with all of these players. I mean, there's so much that goes into it. I want to ask you, because you've competed on Olympic teams, and while tennis is an individual sport, you played on the U.S. Olympic team, the U.S. Fed Cup team. Talk about what goes into that. Oh, and by the way, you also coached on those teams. And I would think, we, especially as Americans, the biggest thing is about winning. So marketing, winning, we know marketing is important. I don't do a great job at it. So I know it's something that needs to happen. But is that what needs to happen with the Olympics? What happens when you go into picking the players for an Olympic team?
Well, first of all, you have to, it's about who can work together well. And it's about the top people that are playing and that have been playing together. Caitlin, just, like you said, just coming into the league, you're going to go with who's already been out there before. But more than anything, it's getting that team to gel. Because as we've seen on other Olympic teams that didn't do well when they went over there, you're putting people together just because you think that they might work, or maybe they have the attention of people outside of the game, social media or whatever. And it doesn't work. You need to put
Right.
together the team that is actually going to gel. These young women that are playing now, that are going to have the opportunity to play in the Olympics, they have been working together. They've been gelling together. They know each other, and it's totally different. Yes, people can have the argument where, Caitlin, she came in, she has more eyes. Olympic doesn't need any more eyes. I mean, it's the Olympics. You don't need no more eyes. It's not going to help any more situations. What really is going to help is if that team is going to gel together. And already you have a little bit of the negative that's coming with it, because it's like, she should have made the team. So if we pick her for the team and then she goes there, it's you bringing in some negative already that doesn't need to be there.
If she gets picked for the team, that means you got to take somebody out who's
Yeah.
worked for it and deserves it, right? Who knows in 4 years if this is their last shot? I mean, who do you go to and say, oh, marketing is really important? Charles says, good morning, Charles. He said it's about the gold medal. And that's really it, right? You can say, well, they're going to win the gold medal anyway. It's their guaranteed. And international competition is very physical, which is one of the things that Caitlin's going to have to grow and get stronger in. I saw an interview last night with Steve Kerr, and he was talking about something else. He was talking about politics, but then, of course, he was asked about the Caitlin Clark in this situation. And he said, I remember a guy who, when he came into the league, was not a superstar, Steph Curry, much like Caitlin Clark, right? He wasn't that. He had to get stronger. And he got there. And now he, of course, is one of the all-time greats. He said it's about it's rites of passage, and it's about the process and taking the time. He said, and she's going to be fine, and she'll have time in the future to be on other Olympic teams. He said, and yeah, are they going hard at her? That's what happens in the NBA. That's how the league works. It's not just this has been said, she's a white straight woman, and that's different for this league.
And it's called being a rookie. It's called being a rookie. You are literally going to get, there is no way in the world, and that's what makes it so funny to me. There's no way in the world that you're going to come into a professional league and not get picked on in some type of way because you are a rookie. They're going to make you pay. They're going to make you earn your spot. And the other thing is, people need to kind of like get over this whole thing. About, you're just picking on the one player, you're just picking on this. There's other rookies that are getting picked on as well. She's not the only one. She's the one that people know, but they are literally, Angel Reese. She is literally, nobody's talking about the fact that she is literally getting thrown to the ground majority of the time, but she is not complaining. She just keep moving, and she knows already, as well as Caitlin knows as well too, you're going to have to take your hits.
You mentioned Angel Reese. There was a play last week where she was really kind of grabbed by the head and slammed on the court. And the player who committed that foul was given a flagrant 2 and ejected from the game. And we've heard nothing about that, right? It is the rites of passage. It's unfortunate. You mentioned Larry Bird. If you talk about when he came into the league, and he and Magic was doing an interview somewhere last week, and he said, she should really talk to Larry Bird. And they were like, well, why Larry Bird? He said, well, first of all, he's in Indiana. She's in Indiana, but you have to face a lot of those same things. And I heard somebody say, well, Candace Parker was on the team as a rookie. Okay, let's not pretend she's Candace Parker. Let's stop.
Yeah.
That's too much. That's just too much. And so the excitement around women's basketball is good. The more eyeballs on it are good. The league had been trending up recently anyway, but to think that one player can sustain it. Here, let's go back to, Zina. We talked about the Houston Comets. I was on their broadcast team for 2 of those championship years. They used to sell out the Compact Center. It held 16,611, right? Like on a regular basis. They had a TV contract, much like the WNBA does now. It was attached to the NBA team's contract. So they had much more marketing and exposure, and the numbers were a lot better. A big part of this is marketing and exposure. So if the league does that, if they can build on these TV contracts and be easy to find, like on ABC or ESPN, back then it was NBC, instead of some obscure channel down the cable guide, all of those things matter. It happened back then, it's happening now. And we're seeing the results in terms of numbers and eyeballs, and not just because of Caitlin.
Yeah, and Kim, that's very interesting that you said that, because it is all about marketing and how it's being branded. And I would say to the WNBA, be careful or how you're going and flowing with this branding, because you won't be able to get it back. And right now, it's just very interesting to me. I sometimes I'm just on social media and just reading, and a lot of people in our community, especially, are talking about the drama that is, the drama part of the WNBA. Now the girls are playing great basketball, but people are more interested. Yes, we do live in the culture where drama comes out, but I would say be careful on how that you are basically going after the branding and the marketing, and who you're branding and the marketing, and why you're branding and marketing the players in the way that you're doing it. Because the one thing that I've learned through tennis is you have to take people for where they are, and you
Yes.
can't try to make somebody or who you want them to be.
I just want to pull up the standings. Connecticut is still 10-1. They were 8-0 before they ever lost a game. No one's really talking about the basketball part of it. I mentioned Enrique Ogunbowale, who is, the leading. Is she still leading in score? Her and Aja Wilson are neck and neck. Aja Wilson is averaging 28 points a game, and now Enrique is averaging 26.4. But some of the top players in the league, if you look at scoring and you go down the list, on the league, in terms of scoring, Caitlin Clark is 15th in scoring, averaging 16 points a game. The Indiana Fever have played more games really than anybody else. They're 3-10. So it means they played 13 games. The Mystic have played 12. Most people have played 11 or 12 games. And I get it. The WNBA is trying to milk and get all they can out of Caitlin. People are going to see her and find her. And they're coming to see her, and that's great. But she's also got to be getting a little worn down. I mean, she went straight from, March Madness Final Four, not much time. There was the pre-draft camp, then she was drafted, and they went into play.
Yeah.
Unlike in the NBA, the guys in college get a break. They go through the March Madness, they do the pre-rookie stuff, and they go to Chicago for the pre-draft camp. There's a draft. They get some time. There is the Vegas Rookie League. That's in July. They get some time. Yeah. The season doesn't start until October. She's been nonstop. And so, realistically, you're going to have her then go straight through the Olympics and then try to come back and have – I just don't think it's smart. I think it's the right move. And I think it's the conversation needs to be had about – so y'all can't support the WNBA unless it's her? I just – yes, she's bringing eyes, but she can't sustain a league by herself.
No, she can't sustain a league by herself. And as we both know, Kim, eventually, mentally, she will get burned out. I mean, that's just a natural. And then the other thing that comes up into my play, when you're a rookie and you're coming into a professional league, and you could be the top in, say, college, or for me, I was a top junior or whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to transfer over into professional, because there's a lot more things that you have to deal with. And she could just become, and people don't get on me, I'm just saying she could literally just become another good player in the WNBA. That does not mean that she's going to all of a sudden, just take over all these scoring competitions and stuff that she had when she played in college. It doesn't work that way. So she's got to establish. And so for her personally, she's going to need some time to readjust to see how she fits into becoming a professional player, and how she can improve. And like you mentioned just a minute ago, she's traveling, she's doing all this. She's going to need some mental time just to be able to adjust to everything that she's going through and all of her newfound fame, and to be the champion that I believe that she is. You got to adjust to that as well.
I saw an interview with her, Zina, and she was talking about how she just hasn't had any time really even spend with her family because of their schedule, one. And then she does so many interviews. There's so many media requests, all of these things on and off the court that are pulling on her. She hasn't really had any time for herself. Now, she didn't say it as a complaint, but this was in an interview. But, that whole, work-life balance thing, it's kind of real. And so it's great. And people are like, oh yeah, man. But when you read the comments, a lot of it has to do with this place where race and culture meet.
Yeah.
And that's what the comments are. Those were the conversations. So for some of the people, media people who I said last week on the show with Chris Gardner, who joined me, then a lot of them are fans. A lot of these men who are kind of late to the party because you occasionally talk about a women's sport, or you talk about it during March Madness or during the championship. I'm talking about year in, year out. To understand the game, I think it's short-sighted, and it's unfortunate, and I'm going to say it's disrespectful. And so I appreciate Mike Wilbon calling out. He said his friends and colleagues. He called out Stephen A. Smith and Christine Brennan, Christine Brennan I have a lot of respect for, but I think she's wrong about Caitlin Clark being left off the Olympics team. And you can say someone's wrong, and it doesn't have to be venomous and hate-filled.
Yeah.
But if we don't want to admit, like we don't in many conversations, that this is about race and culture, let me just throw this out. In this phase of we're trying to do away with DEI completely, and anytime we see somebody, a Black person in a position, we want to use that they're a DEI hire. Okay.
Yeah.
So you put her on the team because you said, well, she's a white woman and it's mostly Black people, although there are 4 white players on the team, 4 or 5, I digress. Does that make her an affirmative action placement? I mean, you can't have it both ways, right? You cannot have it both ways. So you want DEI affirmative action, or do you not?
But you can have it both ways when it applies to you.
Well,
you
yeah.
know, meaning that you're getting something out of it. Because let's be real about the whole situation. Caitlin right now is being used. Yes, I said it. She's being used.
Oh, yeah.
She's being used to hit the pockets of many people and a lot of situations. This ain't new. I mean, I can go back as even far as in my career. You know, I was top in the career in tennis way back when, but did I get the endorsements that I deserved to get at that particular time? When someone that could be 50 spots lower than me get more endorsements, or even the money that I should have gotten? Yeah, they did. It has not changed that much. Yes, did Venus and Serena and Naomi and people like that, and Coco now are benefiting from it? Yes, but it's still there. It's still there. It's not going away.
But when Serena started, she suffered from that, right? Remember?
Yeah, she did.
Sharapova got all the endorsements, and Serena didn't get many, and she was number 1 in the world. And so it took a while before she obviously had got to where she was doing very well being endorsed, but she dealt with it as a top player in the world. So this is not a new phenomenon at all.
Well, and that's funny you talked about Serena, because I was reading something the other day. She's still dealing with it, and look at all the stuff that she's done. Her new makeup line, but then people are telling her to stick to what she knows best. That is an undertone, okay? So Kim Kardashian can have it, or Kim's sister, whichever one it is, they can have a line. You see what I'm saying? So who decides who can have a line and who couldn't have a line? It's the same thing in sports. We decide, or people think they decide who they want someone to be. And I was watching the other day, Caitlin walking in 6-inch heels and going to play a match. Really? Really? But I know exactly what it is. Someone's telling her that she needs to dress and look this way or whatever. Angel Reese does that all the time. So that's her. That's what I'm saying. Don't try to make somebody that they're not, because eventually it will go away.
You know, Charles says, let's be real. When the WNBA it was exciting from day one, but their partnership with the NBA never materialized. That could have easily boosted marketing. That's exactly right, Charles. And that's what I'm talking about. It was the teams were basically owned by the NBA owner, and they were part of the NBA TV package. And when that initial kind of boost, I don't know if it was 5 years, I forget the number of years it was, when that partnership ended and the teams had to fend for themselves, it didn't work out so well because they didn't have the foundation and the marketing and the TV package. So, it is a lot to be said about it. And so when people start talking about the business of it, then let's talk really about the business of it. Right? You can't kind of talk about the business of it and say, well, it's marketing and she's good for business. You need to understand the business of the leagues and what happened before And now they're getting back to, okay, they've got some TV deals. If you put them on TV, on stations where they can find them, people can find it, you're going to get some eyes on it, right? But you've also got to do the marketing. And so if you market the league and other players, not just Caitlin, to what Zina says, you've got to be careful what you do and how you market the league. Heaven forbid something happens to her. You never want to see that if she goes down with an injury. The injuries happen in the league. That can happen. What happens if she decides, yeah, you know what? There's a lot of money for me somewhere else. I don't want to do this. I don't think that would happen. So don't act.
Yeah.
I'm just saying anything can happen. So you can't hang it on just one player. You got to always be thinking about what's best. If you're talking about what's best for the league, what is best for the league? Charles says, men talk about women's tennis. I wonder why. Men talk about women's soccer during the World Cup. I wonder why. I mean, why is that? Because they're looking at them and doing what men do. So, oh yeah, Tony says he's watching him on mute. Is this Zina, the tennis player from the 80s? Yes, Tony, it is. Let me tell you.
Yes, this is me under this hat and everything. Bad hair day, but whatever. I work in a little office. But thanks, Tony.
Zina, what excites you most about the opportunity right now for women's sports? We've been talking about this for months, but what is it that excites you most about where things are?
What excites me more is that there are eyes on all women's sports, and I have to go back to one of my mentors, who Billie Jean King. Billie and other women around the country has just been talking, giving opportunities for women to have the opportunities to make a career off of sports, and that's what I'm loving. I'm loving the fact that there are so many more sports. I mean, there's a hockey team, there is a soccer team. I mean, there are just so many more opportunities for women to go and play a sport. Because, Kim, as you know, a lot of times people still see women's sports as, oh, you guys do that as a passion? Like, you ain't no passion. I'm out there working my butt off. I'm out there doing what I need to do. It's not just a passion. But when it comes to men's sport, it's like it's their career. That just boggles my mind when that happens, when people say that.
Zina Charles says the WNBA scared the NBA. There was a lot of excitement initially in those years. And so we brought this up last week, and I saw somebody mention, oh, you're talking about something that happened 25 years ago when I talked about the Comets. And I say that I'm talking about in the beginning of the league, right? The league has been around for 27 years. If you go back, if you look at the 10 top watched women's basketball games, 7 of those games were Houston Comets games, right? So this idea that people want the eyeballs on the game, that is not new. And that was a long time ago. And so what's different? It was the structure. It was the business of it. It was the TV package. It was the marketing. It was all that stuff that happened then when they started, and that all these years in the middle that they've struggled with. I mean, think about it. How does Houston not have a WNBA team?
Well, that's right. I was exactly, me and you talked about, we've been talking about that even before Caitlin even came into the picture. It's like, how do we not have one? And especially someone that what they won 4 championships.
4 in a row, the first 4.
4 in the first 4 in a row. But even more, some of the top players were right here on that Houston team that formed and shaped WNBA as well as the Olympics. I mean, you got to be kidding me. And it's, and then we go back to the marketing, the branding, or whatever. And Kim, I know you would know this. Was Cheryl Swoop the very first one to have her own shoe?
Yeah, she was. She's the first woman to have her own shoe.
So
when they marketed the league around Cheryl when she came in, she was supposed to be the player. When she came in, and she was, but then of course, she had a kid in her first or second season, and Cynthia Cooper, stepped up and played, had a huge impact. And Tina Thompson, they had a big 3 early on, and the whole roster was deep.
Well, and where I was going with that is when the whole hoopla of the money and amazing money that Caitlin Clark got. Yes, so proud, so happy for her. She deserves every bit of it. But she ain't the first. They made it seem like she was the first. And who one of your players, one of your watchers said something about that was 20 something, 25 years. It's very important to remember our history and where we came from, because if not, it keeps like coming over and over. What's her name? Asia is.
Yeah.
Why
Asia has
we,
a shoe. I mean,
exactly.
they didn't market Asia's shoe.
Did
Nike
not
just did the
market it.
shoe, and then we didn't hear anything about the shoe, and then it was the Caitlyn shoe. It's marketing.
And we go back to, once again, it's because Caitlyn is white. Let's just say it.
Yeah.
She's white. And it's, but please stop, people, please stop putting it out there like a lot of things are the first. It's not the first. There's people that broke the barriers. And a lot of times, unfortunately, people don't want to hear this. It's normally on the heels of a Black person, of things that were broken.
Caitlin Clark is, people talk about, oh, there's the interest. I mean, she's from Iowa, that part of America. She has never won a championship, which doesn't mean she's not a great player, but let's just be clear. She's not a champion yet. Perhaps she will be at some point. She wasn't in high school. She wasn't in college. She clearly won't be as a rookie because their team's not very good, which is why she was the first overall pick. It goes like that. People are mad because of why did she go to that team? Well, she was the first pick. They had the worst record. Of course, that's where she went. People just seem to lose their minds. But Charles gave you a compliment. He said, the beautiful Zina, and whenever she had a match televised, I stopped what I was doing to watch.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's important to really talk about like, what's the best way to move forward? I think we have to have real conversations about it. And in order to get to the next side, it's like we have to do with the rest of society, which is what I always say sports is. It's just a microcosm of society. And that is what's happening with Caitlin Clark, right? It's the great white hope, because there's not really one in the NBA, right? She kind of meets, American born, right? She kind of meets all of this is what we like to hang our hat on. And so I think that's why you have people from the NBA talking about it without really following and watching and knowing the history. And I just think she has really earned the spots that she's gotten. And I imagine, I don't know her personally, that she would like to earn the spots that she gets. Well, right? That seems to be who she is.
Yeah, well, you know me, Kim, I'm watching the body language. I'm listening to what people say or whatever. From everything that I've seen with her, she's a true athlete. She wants to play. She wants to play. She, the whole trash talking incident, it occurred because she understands it's all part of the game. She's a big trash talker. Now, do they ever really talk about the fact that she's a big trash talker? And then when Angel Reese came out, I was like, but she's talking. This is what we do. So if you really listen to her interviews or whatever, she just wants to play ball. She wants to improve. She wants to, go with the thing. And that's why I will go back to what I started. WNBA, be careful. And I'm going to say it again. Be very careful what you're putting out there. Let the person be who they are. And I think she's strong enough. And I think she has her shoulders on her head, and she's talking to people that have been there before, hopefully. But you cannot just hang your hat on one person. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
The NBA would be even bigger if they partnered with the WNBA. What do you think about that?
Say that one more time.
That the NBA would be even bigger if they partnered with the WNBA.
Oh, definitely. It's the times right now. I don't even see how they can't. ATP and WTA have talked about that partnership that needs to happen. That's the way of the world right now. And in order to be where they need to be and be as big as they need to be, most organization with men and women need to partner. I think you're right on that one with Kim.
Well, that's because he's our legal expert for the show. And he said worldwide. Exactly. So if you talk about growing the sport worldwide and they're worried about Caitlin not being on the Olympic team because of some kind of worldwide growth, they've got to get the foundation and the structure here, right? They've got to get that partnership solidified, and they've got to get the TV contract. So the TV contract is going to be the difference in how the league grows or not, whether the league grows. I remember, the NBA before they got the blockbuster TV contracts, when the NBA finals were tape delayed because we were watching Dallas, not the basketball team, but the show. So it's come a long way because of what TV gives you.
Yeah.
The TV contract gives access to more people, and that's a huge part of how you market the leagues. And the NBA had to learn that.
And it's funny. They need people like yourself, Kim. They need the older. I'm sorry, I'm not calling you old, but because I'm the
Seasoned
same
is what
age.
the
The seasoned, the people that are in the midst of doing it right now, and also need to hear from the future.
Right.
But you have to put them all together, because if you try to just take away, there's so much history that is out there about why the WNBA worked in the first place, and then why it didn't work. So why would you not go to the people that are seasoned in this situation and put all of those people in the middle of the table? I think sometimes what I notice is these younger people are literally just think, oh, well, that was back in the day. Back in the day got you to where you are now. So you can't get rid of it. you need to figure out how to enhance it, because the history is part of it. WNBA right now, and I totally agree with you and Charles, NBA should be all over trying to talk to people like you, Kim, and Charles and other people, like put you guys in the room to talk about it so they don't make the same mistake anymore.
Zina, it is, you're absolutely right. And so, speaking of history, this is totally off the subject. So if you're just tuning in, making a hard pivot, because I've been meaning to ask Zina about this on the show. I wanted her to share a story that I often talk about. So I want her to tell it because it's her story. And Zina, it's back when you were playing, and it was during the time of apartheid, and you were invited to play an exhibition match at Sun City. And I think they offered you like $1 million.
Yes. They actually, I will never forget that. And I still to this day think about turning down $1 million, especially back in that day. I got a phone call from Arthur Ashe, and Arthur said, "You can't do it." And I'm like, "It's $1 million." He's like, "You absolutely cannot do it. Do you understand what's going on with the people over there? And if you show up, it's like, you'll be blacklisted. You're not helping the situation." And he explained all that to me. And when he started explaining it to me, it became very clear. It's not a selfish act, Zina. You cannot take the money. You have to be able to stand up for something to help others. And I've never forgot that. I thought he was crazy at the time. But once, apartheid was lifted and we talked a little bit about it, then it just gave me, it gave me chills to think about getting an advice for someone like Arthur, who actually protested. He was jailed and everything because of the belief that he had for the entire world of being able to be free. And to me, I never forgot that. Would love to have that $1 million, but
and listen, I tell the story like it's mine. Like I say it's you, because I too was proud. So Keisha said, "Tennis Legend indeed. I remember being part of her summer tennis camp."
Oh, thanks.
Charles said he was so proud. And then Kim Edwards Williams says, "That's a book, sis." I mean, I was proud. I mean, I was always kind of a little, like my brother used to call me Angela Davis, but and I don't know that I've ever really obviously grown out of that. I just am able to navigate it a little better. But that was like, I'm like, my best friend said no. I mean, I was very proud, because $1 million is a lot of money right now. It was really a lot of money back in the 80s and 90s. Because that would have been the late 80s or early 90s.
Yeah, it was like the middle 80s. I remember.
Middle 80s.
Yeah.
And to know that, you've got to stand for something bigger. And I bring that up because I feel like we're in a place now where we need more of that kind of action, and it doesn't have to always be about money, but what are you standing up for? I saw Andrea Carter, who is a basketball analyst on a show yesterday morning, Stephen A. show. I watched it briefly as much as I could take, and she was talking. They were talking about Caitlin Clark and the marketing. This whole marketing about whether she should, be on the Olympics team or not. And so she said it's not about marketing. So she's explaining from a basketball perspective, and it's about winning the goal and how do you tell the people who've earned it, on and on and on. And so what he says to her is, marketing is a key, and you need to learn that and do better about it, because you're really good at what you do. But if you don't get this marketing thing down, you're going to always be basically underpaid. And she said, I'm never going to sacrifice what I believe to be right when I talk about basketball and my knowledge. And she said, my marketing's fine. And so I thought, it's hard, right? Because we see people who are doing exceptionally well, and we know a lot of it is marketing. And while we don't knock them, you still need some people that are willing to stand on what is right and what they believe. It can't just be the people who are highly marketed. And I think that's how we got here.
Well, Kim, you and I grew up under John Wilkerson and Ed Arnold, and people that taught us, and our parents. I know your mom and my mom or whatever. We were taught to, first of all, that lion is not gonna work, and selling your soul definitely ain't gonna work. So we a lot of people, in my opinion, right now have lost who they are, or where they're trying to be, because they're selling out for materialistic things or the selfishness. So you can't really have an opinion if you sell your soul. You can't.
Right. Not one that matters,
And not one that, a good friend of ours, Jimmy Lee Solomon, told me a long time ago, you sell your soul, you'll never get it back. And I've never forgot that. And what he meant by that at that particular time, when I was asking him a question, when you go into a boardroom, or you go into pitch an idea or whatever, you have a choice. Is the money more valuable to you, or what you are trying to pitch and to help others more valuable for me? For me, I would tell you up front, and you know me better than most people, whatever, I am going to go with how I can help others. Do I live a nice life? Yes, it's just me and my dog. I'm good. Would I like to be able to have a little more money? Of course. But I know everybody's not going to buy into the fact of I'm a truth teller.
Right. Yeah, people don't always want to hear the truth. Kim says, no, for real, that's history, and we need your perspective. Y'all better both get to writing. Well, I am writing. I'm almost finished, but I hadn't written this book. But her story is in my book, right? Her story didn't make it into my book. I think it's super important. But it is a sign of the times, and, it's not super popular. I think that, I'm not anti-young people. I'm with you. They're the future, but they need some guidance and some structure. Yeah. And I think when you can put it, wisdom and history with future and technology is what really makes things work. Otherwise, man, well, we see it. We see it everywhere. I mean, we see people spinning around. I mean, you mentioned Caitlin trying to navigate them 6-inch heels. That's not really your style.
I'm sorry,
you do and be great.
That
was funny. That is, I see it all the time. I'm watching some of that. I'm going, really? Angel Reese, she was the Barbie on the Bayou when she was at LSU. That's what she does. She wears the Prada dress and shoes. I mean, that's her style. She can pull it off. I'll tell you another. There's the basketball coach who is at Sydney Carter, who's known for being very fashionable, women's basketball coach at college basketball at Texas now. And she pulls it off. I mean, she's able to wear and be fashionable, and that's part of her brand. I saw another coach. I'm not going to name her because I don't want to do that. She's trying to steal a page from that book, but that's not her. It's not her lane.
And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah. And so I want to say to her, you can be great and stylish and fashionable, but you can't do it that way. You got to do it in a way that you can pull off. Because when it's not for you, you can't even pull it off. You just can't. And poor Caitlin, I said, I hope she don't. She gonna mess up how to get a high ankle sprain in them shoes.
Can you imagine me back in the day with my pigeon toes and trying to walk? And first of all, anytime somebody, I'm like, okay, do you have a kidney heel? Because that's about where. But I love to dress. I love to wear things. I love makeup. That was me. So that was very easy to pass off. But I'm just saying, WNBA or any of those other sports, professional sports, let people be who they are,
Yeah.
and market around that, because there are people out there where they much rather accept the person of who they are.
Kim says she did look uncomfortable in that pantsuit and heels. She did. Bless her heart. I was like, now you need to stop it. Stop it. No, stop doing her like that. Before I let you go, Zena, we obviously have to talk about tennis. Um, let's the French Open, of course, just ended. And I was hoping Coco could pull it off. She did get to number 2 in the world during the tournament. She lost to Swiatek. What do you think about where Coco is in her future and just the state of women's tennis? We saw Naomi Osaka come back. She gave Swiatek a tough first round match, 3 sets, but when she let her get back in it, I knew that was it, right? Because she is the number 1 player in the world. Madison Keys had a decent outing. I mean, there's some players that are making some noise on the American side.
Yeah, I for a minute now I've been thinking American tennis is looking pretty good and it's looking pretty strong, and men and women. Men, we're still waiting for that next champion to come out of to come from somewhere, but I still think that we still have some depth. My pick on the men's side still is, I just believe, and you asked me this one time before, why do I believe this? I believe that Ben Shelton will be number 1 in the world. And I'm the reason why I say that is because he wants it. He studies it. He's not afraid to tell people that that's what he wants. And you got to speak it first. So, and then for as far as Coco is concerned, I don't know, Kim, if you remember, I did an article, Peter Bodo, about a year or so ago, and he asked me when did I think that she was going to mature, and why did I think that? I said 2021, and I remember him asking, it's like, well, why do you think? I said, as a Black woman, she needs to mature and understand truly who she is as a Black athlete first. Then she has to understand who she is as a woman, and second, then a woman athlete, and then she's gonna have to be able to say to her parents, "It's okay. You guys have given me everything. I'm ready to take it on now." So she's at that stage, and I think she literally is starting to come within her own positively in just right before ours, and that was about 2021, that
Yeah.
I said that this would happen, and she's right there. And she did win the U.S. Open a little quicker. I thought it was going to be definitely 21, but she won the doubles. I love the way that she said that at the French Open. I love the way she said she didn't think she was going to ever win a doubles championship because she had lost 2. So I guess the third time is a charm. And then she said, but she didn't think she was going to win the U.S. Open. So she said, what she has realized is just keep doing what you need to do and improve, and the journey of taking it, and you don't know what's going to happen. And so she's like, she learned to relax with it in the process, and I love that statement from her.
It was exciting. It's exciting to watch her. She's comfortable in her skin. She's comfortable. She's comfortable with being a Black woman in a sport that is not really designed for us.
Mhm.
Although we have really made some strides. Let me ask you about Francis. We both like Francis, TFO. Do you think Francis can turn the corner? I mean, he last year I thought he was on a trajectory, and then of course he just when he meets Ben Shelton, it just is there like this mental block there now? Because that has been like a roadblock for him at the US Open last year. I thought that could have been Francis's chance, right? But he couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I still go back to, and I've said this to him directly before, is he was getting ready to play um, Ben Shelton, and they interviewed him on the court, and he said he expect to be in the semis. I'm like, dude, you sit there and said you expect to be in the semis. Ben, if I'm Ben Shelton, I'm coming after your ass. Like, you know, so it's just like, once again, you be careful with the words that you say in that situation. But he felt it, he believed it. That's what he believed. But you also have to understand that what you put out sometimes gets other people up. And I think also for Ben has always looked up to Francis. So
Mhm.
him having the opportunity to beat Francis in that US Open, it just helped him even more, and he was here they played each other at the Houston clay courts, and he said that he loves, the fact of what Francis has done from even helping kids, and he's watched him, and so I honestly think that if it's done correctly, and if Francis sees it this way as well, that they can help each other get to where they want to go. I think Francis will eventually get there. I think that, so I'm not trying to tell him before, dude, that fame ain't nothing nice, because everybody starts pulling you one way or another, and then you still got to play tennis. It's not like um, basketball. You're playing an individual sport where everything relies on each and everything that you do. And I think he's really working on it. He's really trying. He's trying to become a true professional in his profession, being a black man, and we're all pulling on him to be the next African American or black champion in tennis, and that's a lot, because the last one was Arthur Ashe.
Right. Well, you
That's a lot.
experienced that too when you were coming up,
Yeah.
right? That's some of the pressure because everybody thought she's not doing enough. And I'm like, she's number 4 in the world. I mean, number 4 in the world. Like, and then the top 10 for 10 years. That's a big feat. But people, we just hang our hats and we just want this champion so bad. And we don't realize the pressure it puts on the player. But that's a
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah, you don't, and that's why I'm fortunate enough to that he does listen to me. He does call. He'll he texts or ask questions. It's so cute though. He always wants to call me on video. I'm like, dude, sometimes I don't want to talk on video.
That's that youth. They want to FaceTime you. Can you just call
But
me?
that's the younger generation. So I am hoping and praying that he does, because and Kim, you know this, that I say this about him all the time. He has the personality to literally change the way that people look, and it's not just black people, because every race loves him, every color. It's just his personality is very infectious, and he can literally change the way that we look at tennis like no one else has done since Arthur.
Francis Tiafo, pulling for him. Who do you see as being favorites? Oh, before I get to Wimbledon, Rafael Nadal.
Oh,
I sat there and watched him lose that first round match, and I thought that I forget the guy he lost to, but he handled it really well because in early rounds, the winners talks after, and so they went over to him. The tournament people said, "Hey, do you?" And Rafi, being who he is, like, no, no, and the other guy's like, no, he should talk. So the guy spoke first, and he really kind of deferred to Rafael Nadal, and he's realized that was probably his last time playing the French Open on those courts at the French Open. Maybe he'll play in the Olympics, but man, what he's meant to tennis, and I just really liked him as a champion and
he
as a
played Zurich, right?
right
Yeah.
player.
Yeah, I mean, just what he's done for tennis, and I sit back and I look at all the time, and I think about him or Federer. Djokovic is not my favorite player to
Mine
watch.
either.
Never been, but I can't get, he's an amazing tennis player, but I just can't get out of how spoiled he was in the beginning. I can't get that out of my head. So
Yeah,
nothing against you, Djokovic, but what you did in the beginning just, whew. But those top three, what they've done for the sport of tennis, and especially Nadal and Federer, that were just so unselfish
yeah,
when it came to giving back. And Federer for years were helping a lot of the African countries learn about tennis, and Rafael Nadal, just the Spaniards that have come up underneath him, and he's always giving back and doing stuff that we don't even half the time don't even know about. That's, to me, those type of people will certainly be missed. And yes, will there be some others that will come through? Yes, we just don't know who they are, and we can see from an outside, maybe not, but Rafael Nadal will definitely be missed. But I say don't count him out on the Olympics.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. And Zena, you talk about the people who have helped. You know, I never want to miss a chance to give you flowers for all that you have helped so many players over the years. I mean, you had a foundation for 30 years, and I don't know if people realize like that's a long time to have an active foundation that's providing training and opportunities about tennis, but also you have been an ear and a mentor to so many players on the tour just because they can call you, not because you're on their staff. And I think that says a lot, right? I mean, I know because we're friends of the phone calls and the text at the before a Grand Slam match, before this, and to be that and not be one of the people that they're paying and you still show up for them, I think says a lot about you and your character and what you mean and what you want to see from the sport. So, they won't say it, but I'm going to say thank you
Well,
for all of that.
well, thank you. And as you know, we grew up very similar. Character is all you have. And
Yeah.
so, for me, I never forget that when Arthur Ashe died, Jeannie, his wife, called me and she said, "Now it's for you to take over." And I'm like, "No, I don't want that." Like, no. It's like, but I had to find a way to do it that was very easy and didn't take me out of my character. So, a lot of people don't know this, but I would always, I have people over during when Wimbledon did not have, you play on that middle Sunday, and we would, have dinners and invite everybody over. And I got to meet a lot of people. And then, like Francis sometimes says to me, like, here she goes, she gonna start preaching. That was my way of passing
Yeah.
on information, So I love, when I'm asked that question, um, if someone comes to me, and I'm not going out searching to give it to you.
Right.
But if you ask, I know that you're very ready. And, Taylor used to always say to me, Taylor Townsend used to always say, it's like you coming right at the person. And if you can't take it, you can't take it. So that's me. And that's the way. And I love talking to younger people in any sport. Because people ask me in all different sports when some young player is coming up, for advice. And, my thing is, I'm just going to be truthful and tell them the truth. And once again, don't sell your soul.
I don't blame yourself. Zane, I think about the fact that we got a chance to meet Arthur, and you knew him obviously better than I did. But one of the last interviews he did, I always think about this back when I was doing some work for BET, and we had him on the show via satellite as an interview. And James Brown was sitting in, filling in for Charlie that day. And before the segment, he goes, "Okay, you take this segment. I mean, when we come back out of the commercial, out of the break, you lead into the Arthur thing." And I was like, he said, because that's your sport. It's tennis. You know Arthur. So I always appreciate that about JB. I don't know if he remembers it, but I do. So to
And
be able
JB,
to
not the
actually,
singer.
yeah, the broadcaster, not the singer. And to be able to interview a guy that was just a legend and had been a mentor. And I got to meet him a few times too at some conferences and the fact that on in the court. But Arthur was just really, he was special and amazing. And, I think about what he meant to not just tennis, but the world. And, when you think about people like that, it's hard not to figure out, I should be doing a little bit more. It's hard to
Yeah,
not say, I
yeah.
should be given, what can I do? Like, I may not be Arthur, but I can be a little more of me. And I think he's a great example to kind of build from.
Well, I think sometimes what I'm noticing with these younger athletes that are coming up, they have so many people telling them what they should do and what they shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do for them personally. It all has to do with how much money are they going to make off of them.
Yeah.
So, and you and I talk about this all the time, but how can you get to the root of who you really are or what you want to do when people are always pulling at you for their selfishness part of it. And it doesn't. And I'll leave you with this because we talk about this a lot too. Like the real journalists like yourself, like how do you ever get the real stories anymore? Because
Yeah.
it's all about how's this going to help my brand? Is this going to, whatever. So
Right.
how do I form this to say what the way I want it to say? But then that athlete is sitting in their room depressed as hell because they don't sold they soul. Like,
And they feel it.
yeah.
Right? What you see publicly, they do still feel it. And I remember you said this, and I don't think this is something that is breaking any kind of confidence. You work with Serena late in her career, the year before I think she left, and you always say to her, "You know what to do.
Yeah.
You got everything that you need. Trust yourself." Because she is, she was a great champion. She really was a great champion.
She's a great champion, but and I used to always say this as well. It's like with Serena and Venus, they had a foundation that their mother and their father instilled in them to believe in themselves and realistically for the money that they have, you never really hear Venus and Serena with all this materialistic stuff that's going on. They stay very strong to what they believe and how they believe it and their faith. And in this world in this world today, that's all you got.
Yeah, that is all you got. Well, with that, Zena, I'm gonna let you go. I appreciate you as always joining me for a little chalk talk. And the last time we did this show, my friend Erica was like, Erica used to be a producer at Two. We've been friends for years. She's like, that's send that show to people. I'm like, send it to who, Erica? She's like, yeah, you be doing this all the time. I said, well, Zena got some other obligations, but I'll get her back. So this was a great opportunity, and I always appreciate it. And I thank you for you telling your Sun City story because I tell it all the time.
It's all good.
And I had somebody say, was that really true? I said, okay, the next time she's on, I'm gonna let her tell it. So it is really very true. She did
very true.
Turn down $1 million in the mid 80s because she was not going to go to apartheid and give them any credibility for what they were doing. And so, it'll come back. You still got time.
And thank you, Arthur.
All right, Zena. Thank you. I'll see you next time,
all
my
right,
friend.
take care. Have a good one.
That was the legendary Zina Garrison. I appreciate it. I was going to, yeah. Charles says I'm going to start telling it too. It's a great story, and it's true. And you think about it, like $1 million at that point in her career, when the money is nowhere like it is now. To say, because Arthur could have told her, and she could have been like, "Yeah, nah, dude, I need that money," but she got it. And a lot of it has to do with, like she said, our foundation from both of our families. I say our, they didn't offer me $1 million. I would have turned it down too, just if you're wondering. But I think it's important to share those stories and for people to know. And she's right. The history is super important. So I was going to share some sound with you guys. I'll share it next week from Texans minicamp because I thought the conversation today went as it should, and we are out of time. But remember a few things. If you're in Harris County and you have not voted, there is an election underway. Today is the last day for early voting, and the election is actually on Saturday. It is about filling these final 2 seats on the Harris County Appraisal District Board. And so I encourage you to vote if you're registered. If you're not registered, which brings me to my next point, make sure that you get registered because we have some work to do this fall. I never tell you who to vote for, but I do want you to be registered. I want you to be an informed voter, and I want you to vote your values and vote what matters for you and your family. But if you are not registered, you can't do any of that. So I'm encouraging you to get registered and get ready to vote because that's super, super important. All right. As always, thank you for being a part of Chalk Talk. Don't forget about our good friends over at I Love Jinka. Kim and LJ have a product that you really, really want to make sure that you check out. Go to ilovejinka.com. It's the turmeric paste, or it is the capsules, and it helps with anything that has to do with inflammation, because that is the root really of the evil stuff that happens in our body. inflammation internally. So go to ilovejinka.com for more information and check it out. All right, that's going to do it for me for today. As always, I appreciate you. And I love you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk. Remember, love is an action word. If you will, share this show with your audience wherever you are watching it. And I will see you next Tuesday on Chalk Talk right here at 11 a.m. Follow me along the way before that for updates about everything else that's happening. I'll have some thoughts about some things that aren't sports, some things happening in the legal world, like today. Hunter Biden was found guilty on three counts having to do with the gun possession and him being an addict. So we don't have time to get into that today, but follow along and I'll tell you what I think about it and what I think about what's happening with our legal system. So remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. I'll see you next week on Chalk Talk. Have a great week, everybody.